window.
Can you see that as a full screen? You don't see my other tab, right?
No.
Okay, that's fine. I can just switch the tab when I need to then. Let me open up.
What have we
Right,
gone?
we are
Just
live.
gone 11. So we're live. If anyone's joining, we're two technical people having a few technical issues about getting the slides shared, which is always fun. So we'll begin in sort of a minute or so. Just wait for a few more people to turn up, and obviously we're recording this anyway. So if you're unavailable to attend, you'll be getting the recording of that, and if you want to share that with your team, more than welcome to do so.
Okay. We've got one person in. Okay, we have a question for you. Can you see our presentation full screen for you? Because we're being technophobes this morning. And we just want to make sure that you can see this whole presentation. So if you could just give us something in the chat. Hi. Okay, awesome.
Thanks, Gavin.
Right.
Perfect.
Okay, we're just going to wait for a couple more people to join, and then we'll get going. Thank you all for confirming. And you can see our cameras as well. Because apparently last time we might not have actually had our cameras on. So we just want to make sure that everything's good. Okay, I think we're good to go. Right. Okay, so over to you, Gavin.
Thank you. Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about aligning sales and marketing with real-time alerts. It's really a focus on the analytics side of the platform. So there's sort of two aspects to Leadoo and the solution. One is the bots and the interaction, the engagement, and the leads, and then the second side of it is more about enabling like outbound activity and being able to understand a bit more about your traffic and who's coming to the site, what are they doing on the site. So today, I'm technical account manager for the UK team. Helen is our onboarding development manager. I'm sure you probably ran into us at some point in your Leadoo journey now. So we'll be taking you through this today with a few slides to cover just on sort of a bit of what these areas are for and what information you can find in it. And then we'll be jumping into some platform demos.
Sorry, I'm a bit slow on the keyboard today. So
that's grand.
These are the steps that we're covering. I'll go to the first one.
Perfect. So yeah, as I said, we're going to start with company ID, and then we'll move into sales alerts. They're all linked together, really. But just company ID in a nutshell first, before we dive into the platform. To give you like the sort of marketing spiel, it turns anonymous visitors into sort of actionable insights. So it really just tells you who is visiting your site. So before, you may just have like a list of how many people have visited, but now we're able to tell you which companies they would belong to. And generally speaking, we're sort of working off a 20 to 40% reveal rate from your website visits. So, I mean, it will vary based on the industry, but the information is all GDPR compliant. It generates a company profile, and it'll have like the revenue, the industry, their location, headcount, and a wee bit of information about that company. As much as we can pull back from our partners, we can see the list is clear bit there. That's who we get this information from. So it's all based on visitor tracking and the IP that they're using to visit your site. It'll also generate the customer profile. So even if they don't convert as a lead, we will store the information of what they've been doing on the site, so what pages they've visited, if they've had any bot discussions, etc. And you'll be able to filter all this and generate reports based on this information that Helen will show you in a wee second or two. And then the next thing we're going to cover, if you wouldn't mind skipping on, is the sales alert. So this is like the first bit is the information, and this is sort of like what do we do with that information. And one of the most common things would be to create sales alerts. So what we do is we'll generate email notifications that can go straight to your sales team. We can create the very bespoke filters so that you're only sending them like the hottest leads and in real time, so that they're not getting bombarded by lots of different information, or maybe they're reluctant to come into this platform because they're maybe using HubSpot and LinkedIn, and they've got a lot of other a lot of other tools to use, so they wouldn't necessarily need to actually learn Leadoo at this point. We'd be able to send all that to them in an email. And we will cover slightly the two-way integration at the end. It is a wee bit more complicated, so if obviously we can have calls offline with this if needed, but just to sort of highlight, outside of the emails, we can create a two-way sync. So we'll stick with the HubSpot example. If people are in certain stages of the pipeline in your HubSpot account, we'll be able to identify that they've come back on the site. So for example, if someone says, contact me again in 3 months, we're still working through budgets and things like that, but yet in 5 weeks' time, you've noticed that they've come back on the site, we'd be able to tell you that information. And then it gives you the chance to sort of pick up the phone and get in touch with them and try and shorten the sales cycle without being pushy. You'd be using this information based on intent. So there would be, there'd be a very good reason to speak to them. And so that's sort of the two areas in a nutshell. Enough of me telling you that now. We'll hand you over to Helen, who's going to actually show you what it looks like in the platform and what we can do with it.
All right. Okay, so I'm just switching over and the company identification is loading. There we go. So as we showed you very briefly before, just about what company identification does, but actually what does the interface look like? So this is actually real data. I've hidden any personal data that might appear here, but this is actually what we are identifying on our own site. So to give you an idea, we have a basic funnel that shows here, so we can see how many companies have been identified, how many revisits there has been, and how many have converted via Leadoo bots. So it just gives you a really simple funnel to understand what's happening. And this loads up. So as long as you've got your bots live on your site, this will generate data in here. So there's nothing else to set up here really, but it will start giving you this. And then you can see underneath here, this is where we've got all those profiles for the different companies that we've identified and what's been happening. So how many pages they visited, the discussions that they might have had. And this is really important because it gives you an idea of what their level of engagement is and, maybe what you might want to do with them. So generally, I think we talk to people and using this in a few different ways. So there's kind of the sales team and the marketing team. And with the sales team, they could use this as their prospect outreach list. So they could say, right, I can filter this list or sort it to see, who's maybe had the most discussions, possibly the most engaged. And I'm going to use those as my hit list to start kind of prospecting from. The marketing team could use this to understand if they are targeting the right companies. So you can get a better idea of who's actually coming on. So of course, this is just a summary view, but if I click on one of these, I get a summary of who that company is. So including some key information like their industry, their revenue. So that's really important for matching with things like ICPs. So you can make sure that you're obviously targeting the right people. I won't cover this section too much right now, but ask us about it afterwards if you want to. This is our prospective decision makers. So basically just showing you a list of people that you can reach out to that could be decision makers in that company. So this isn't people who we've said have definitely been on the site because we don't scrape personal details like that. But then if they do convert or they do have any interactions with the bots, then we do get these cards, which shows visitor journeys. But I'll click into that in a moment. But as you can see here, we kind of continue to go down. So we get a full picture of what they've been up to. We get all of the visits that they've been on. So what pages they've been looking at, maybe what discussions they've had with bots. All of this gives you that picture of what they're interested in. So instead of having to start from the top of, okay, this is all the stuff we do, what are you interested in? You can go to that prospect and say, we know you've been looking at X, Y, and Z. Let's talk about that. So you can be far more specific in your conversation and more personalized. I'm just going to close this for a minute. So the one thing is that this is a really big, long list. So as we said here, over 2,400 companies. But realistically, you want to have a much more targeted list, like we said before. So we've got all of that information that we can target on, but you can use these filters to just kind of filter down that list. So we give you quite a lot. So you can do on some of those like ICP factors, like revenue, like location, where the head office is based, head count, things like that. But you can actually also layer in things like page visits. So maybe you want to say, I want to see everyone who's been on the pricing page. So we already have an idea that they could be further down in their journey. And it's as easy as adding it like that. And you can continue to filter this down. Just takes a little while to load up. So we can already see we've got a shorter list. And you can add these as many as you want and also save them. So we've got quite a lot that we've saved here. Just means that you can jump into the platform at any time and go, right, I want to see my filtered list for this particular date. And you've got it right there. The last thing I'll probably like show you in here is just how to export, and then I'll jump over very briefly into Journey Insights. So what might be useful for you to know is if you don't want your sales team in the platform all the time, or just for ease, you want to be able to give like a list for people to call from, you can actually export the list. So I've done my filter. I can export it as a CSV. I get the basic information that I need to know, and then that can be my list to work from. So just some handy kind of tips to use in there. Let me open this up.
Just before you move on to onto that,
yes, please do.
part, just because we were speaking about the exporting the lists, just I suppose some use cases of that. So obviously we can give it to the sales team, as you say, and like we've been working with clients recently who've been using this list as like as a way of creating remarketing audiences in other platforms, like in LinkedIn specifically. So I mean, well, it's not so much a question, more just like an observation of it's sort of two-way. You can do this, so you can have it as a sales team that can go after these companies directly, or you can use it in those campaigns. That's something that we've been doing a lot recently with. So those filters are great for that. So you can, if you were running a LinkedIn ad about a specific product or a specific service that you offer, so you could then drill down and say, well, give me every company who's visited our product / whatever the product page is, and then put that into LinkedIn and create that as a remarketing list, and then send ads to those specifically. So just that, there's a couple of different things we can be doing with this. It's maybe just interesting to highlight. And obviously we didn't say this at the start, but if you have any questions, just put them into the chat and we'll go through them there. If you have any use cases that you want to discuss, or any questions around where the data's from or GDPR and anything like that, obviously let us know.
Awesome, thank you. Yes, you need to stop me if I'm monologuing too much. So please feel free, pipe up with any questions in the audience, and I'll catch my breath. Okay, so what I've done there, so as I mentioned before, we kind of create these cards based on the visitors. So we've got visitors who have identified that part of the company. They could still be anonymous, or they could have been converted visitors. So of course, we've just, everything starred out here. But that's where we can kind of drill down into that individual person's kind of journey. So this is really, I think, a marketer's interest here, and you can get kind of lost in the data here. But the idea being that you can get a better idea of what that full journey looks like. What are the pages that people visit? How can you influence that journey and include touch points as part of that, or just understand what it takes to get to someone to that eventual conversion? So do we have to provide them with more downloadables? Do we have to get them this information on this page? That kind of thing. So this is all kind of like, I suppose, an overview of what this offers. We can spend more time on this, obviously, one-on-one when you're having your sessions. But for anyone who's less familiar with this, we just wanted to give you kind of all the highlights of Company ID and a little look into Journey Insights. But I'd probably encourage you to start kind of having a look at your own platform and seeing what information is in there. And if you're finding anything interesting, then in your next CS session, then, the team can work with you on getting out of it more of what you want. Let me step back to the last page. So I'm going to hand over to Gavin in a moment. But one thing that you might be wondering, or might not, but there's a new button in here. If you've been with us a while, you might not have seen this before. And there's a create automation button. So one of the things about company ideas, it's fantastic, but it does rely on people being actively in the platform. So the whole point of this webinar is to introduce you to sales alerts, which automates some of this so you can get all the information you need, but sent directly to you. So if you are already using filters, then you can go straight from company ID to sales alerts, which then allows you to create the automation. So Gavin, would you like me to open it up here and walk through the steps as you do, or are you going to take over the presentation?
I can share my screen. I think after our technical difficulties this before we started in the trials, I think it should be working okay.
Yes.
But yeah, great note on the create automation button. That's something that's been added recently, and that's honestly been fantastic. It saves a lot of time, and the one beside it also then lets you like transfer those filters into different parts of the platform, because you can get a lot of this information in different parts, and sort of it's presented in different ways. So you don't have to create those filters anymore, like individually on those pages, which is great. So in terms of the workflows, yeah, I mean, it's based on all those filters that Helen was mentioning there. I'll show you some of our live examples, and then we'll just go through and build one really quickly. So these are ones that we have on. There's sort of no limit to the amount of the ones that you can build whenever you if you have access to the tool. I'll just show you this one, which is the Leadoo AI visit. So what this will give us a breakdown of like how many have been successfully sent, how many, if there's been any fails, how many workflows there have been, and then a breakdown of what is the makeup of the workflow. So it starts with a trigger, and then the filters then kick in to say, well, we only want these sort of people to come through, and we only want certain types of visitors to be added to this workflow. And then the action is the outcome at the end, and it's sending an email, and you can view this here. So it'll be a plain text email, and we can dump this information in as macros. I'll show you that whenever we're building it out. I'll just hide this personal data. Sorry. So what this will do is you'll be able to see the emails that have been sent, when they've been sent, and if you click on any of these, it'll show you that, but I won't, because it'll show the personal data, so it won't be anything to see. But it'll give you an idea of what's been going through and how often, how frequently they've been coming through. To actually build them, and I'll just come back a wee step so we can get into this. There we go. So yeah, very straightforward to build. We'll just do we'll do our pricing automotive, because I know that's one of our main industries. So you just give it a name if you want to have a category, and give it a description. So automotive clients who visit pricing page. Pressure of trying to type and talk at the same time there. So the next thing to consider is how often do you want this workflow to run? So it can run regularly once they revisit, because what you'll find is a lot of the companies will, because they'll have maybe multiple visitors coming to those pages, that it could be triggered repeatedly. So once per profile means it'll only ever happen once, but that's probably not the recommended one. The recommended one is in a certain time frame. So if you take like a session as being an hour or something, something around that time, you would say, well, let's see how frequently they're coming onto the site, and if they're coming back, that again signals more intent that we can work with. And then we're looking at the triggers specifically. So new lead is if they've converted. So if they've given you your email or your phone, then you can create automations for that. But this is more, and today we're going to be speaking more about the page visits, because the new leads, sort of those notifications can be managed within the bots themselves. This is more about trying to create those outbound opportunities for people who aren't ready to convert just yet, and maybe just need a wee bit more of a push. So the triggers from here, we can look at any page at all from the website, and as Helen said, as long as that tracking script is on the page, is on the header, then it'll track any page. And I suppose just as a side note for anyone who's like currently in onboarding, or maybe if there's any potential customers on the call, that script can be put on from day one, and there'll be no bots showing until they're built. We know that the onboarding can take sort of 8 weeks, but you could be getting this data from day one just by having that script on there, and you could be working away with that while the bots and things like that are being built. So you can either do any page, or you can drill down and say, well, this is going to be on specific pages. Generally speaking, we would just recommend like the any page option, and then we would use the conditions to do specific pages. So in this example, we're going to do the automotive pricing. So we're going to say company, and you can see that it's basically the same sort of filters that Helen was showing earlier: industry, headcount, revenue, country, the session count, the page visit count, and then below that is the visitor information. So we can tag it that they must belong to a company, which means we have successfully revealed the company that they belong to. We can see what pages they specifically visited, and again, like how many sessions they've had and how many pages they visited, so we can get a bit of intent behind that. So if we were to say company is,
I'm just going to add a quick comment there, but obviously Gavin's showing you how to build this from scratch, which is really good because you can be really detailed on what you want and how you want to trigger this alert. But as we mentioned before, and it's so new, even we forget about it, that if you have already built this kind of filtering or audience that you want to see, then that button will already pre-fill that part of the sales alert already. So just to let you know, you don't have to start from scratch because we have built that in, but we're just showing you it just so you understand if you do want to build them from scratch, what that looks like.
Good point. And even though we have been crying out for this, I have also forgot it is there.
Yeah, it's very new.
So yeah, in this case, we'll go automotive. We'll say the visitor has visited a specific page, and that page is, we'll just paste in the pricing. And then we might also want to add in another condition. Oh, I accidentally deleted that there. Let's see, visited page. We will do visitor page count. So we want to say more than 3. So we want to have, they visited the pricing page, but there's also some intent. So I mean, we could drill down further and say that they have to visit like the case study page, because that again shows us they're in that decision making phase because they're trying to understand a bit more about us and how we work with clients. That's the sort of thing we would normally be doing. So here's a sort of basic one. We would say pricing page and more than 3 visits. And then at this stage, we can either send it as an email or send the profile to the integration, which would sort of tie together with that two-way integration. We could send them directly into like HubSpot, Salesforce, any of the CRMs you have connected. But for the purposes of this, we'll just do it as an email. And then so from here, we would just create a subject line. So new automotive visit. The sender address will always be notifications@leadoo.com. So we have our own sending domain that we go through, so that all the alerts will come directly from that. And then the recipient address would have to be someone that is listed in the team members. So I mean, they don't necessarily need to be logged in and using the platform, but if it was a specific sales person, you would just add them into here, or you can just add in like sales@company.com, like that sort of thing. So that would also be fine. But for the purpose of this, we'll just use Abby because she's the first one that I can see there. The sender name is automatically updated because we've got the sender address in there, and the reply to address, you can either put in your own one, or this is completely up for grabs. You can put whatever you would like in there, and then from here we've got 2 options. So we can build an advanced HTML code or a text editor. So as I say, it is a plain text email. The decision behind that, and I suppose the benefits behind that, is that it's less likely to be picked up by spam filters because it's just text. There'll be the Leadoo branding on it, but it's very minimal. So we've avoided adding lots of images and things like that to make it sort of more lightweight and make sure it doesn't conflict with any of those spam filters. But you can build more complex ones out and put in the HTML code if you're so inclined to do. So from here you would just say hi, hi Abby, and then you've got a new automotive prospect, or something whatever we'd like to have in there. And then from here, we can add in those macros. So we could say company name, and then we just drop the macros in. And so again, it's the more or less exactly the same filters that we're using at the top. So we're being able to tell that the company name is this. We can also say a bit about it, a bit of a description. We can add in number of employees. So this can be customized.
Oh no, I was just going to say that yeah, like you were going on to, you can add all the information you want, but just include the stuff that's going to be most relevant to picking up that phone and making that, sales call, really. So you don't necessarily have to come into the platform to find this information. So you can put in just the key information. You can put in extra information like the pages they visited, etc. So you've got quite a lot of different options there.
And we've got a lot of custom fields built into this. Yours won't look like this. This is because we have the 2 integration with our HubSpot account. And this is how that would work. So it would be able to pick up, the salesperson for the 2 integration. So if it's, so for example, if Rob is attached to this this company that visits, so we can tell him, we can say, Rob, this company is back on the site, and they're obviously more interested, or you can reach out to them. So you won't see those unless you have those integrations set up. But as Helen was saying, yeah, we can add in, this visitor has X amount of page visits, and I mean these are the sort of the normal ones that we would put in. So where are we at? Bot discussions. The visitor has so many page visits and bot discussion. So again, what we're basically telling them is the company name, a bit about the company, the head count. We can add in revenue if we would like, and then a little bit about the visitor information. So they visited X amount of pages, they've had so many discussions, or we could add in session counts and that sort of thing. So we could say, thanks, and that's basically what it would look like. So that's obviously a very quick example that we're doing on on the demo here, but you can see the potential of all the information that you could be adding in. And as Helen said, we don't necessarily need, the if it's going to the sales team for them to be added to the platform, and maybe there'd be a bit of reluctance there anyway. As I say, if they have all those other platforms that they're using, that they might not want to do that. So then we just hit save, and that'll save, and then Abby will start to get all those alerts whenever they come in. So I'll make sure and turn this off before before that happens. So that's that's really the workflows in a nutshell. So it's really just based on the company ID information that we've been getting, and trying to create those outbound opportunities for you. So I'm not sure if anyone has any questions or any examples that they wanted to run through. We've got time now. We can go through that, or anything you want to add, Helen?
Yeah, well, I think you've mentioned it a couple of times. So whilst we wait to see if there's any audience questions, so obviously you showed us on the drop down about all of the two-way, or at least the custom fields that come part of that two-way. But maybe it would be good to show an example of where that gets used. So, for example, sometimes when I've used it with customers, it's based on if we know if they're a customer or not. So we don't necessarily want to let someone know, oh, this person's been on your site if they've already converted, because the sales team will obviously want to pick up on the new prospects. So kind of at what point would you add that? Could you just demonstrate it? Or another example of how you would use that two-way?
Yeah, so I suppose a really good one would be, and I think you sort of showed this briefly when you were going through the company ID, is that we're able to add these on the companies as soon as they've been revealed in the platform. So if you did want to restrict them, and the customer one's a great one. So if we did notice that customers are visiting, we could add as a different custom field, and I'll show you how to create those in a little second. We could add in the existing customer, yes or no, or prospect status. It might be customer, it might be in pipeline, that sort of thing. And then from here, what we can do is we can say, so these are all our own staff. So this is the sales person, so we could assign them to that. We could say what life cycle stage they're at, if they are that sort of proposal sent, or they're in sort of demo booked, or whatever it may be. And as I say, we can add in the customer type, is it yes or no, as an agency, and that sort of thing. So they can be added on here, and then within the workflows we could make sure that it was blocked out of those. out of those custom fields. I can just show you that quickly, 2 seconds, just because there's quite a few here. Well, it's taking a wee second to go. And then back into edit. And then under the conditions, it would just be a case of saying, you know, visitor custom field or company custom field. And so they have to be in the lead phase, or they have to be in the opportunity phase. So we can tie those two things together, and they'll be created in conversion insights, insight settings, and custom fields. So they'll all be in here, and they'll be pulled across. And then the value will be what it is in the CRM. So that's what it would look like in our HubSpot account. And then so that'll give you an idea of how that works. So the numbers would be their account or their user ID in HubSpot.
And I know another customer I've worked with, they've used it. So not just that, so we don't want to have an alert about customers who already exist, but also they want an alert for people on a particular prospect list. So maybe you've run a campaign that has a list of prospects that you've attached to that campaign, and you want to know about those specifically. That's also possible. So in the similar way that we can bring back that information, we can do that with specific lists. So you can really be quite tailored with these alerts. You can be quite wide, just say, I want to know about everything and everyone. You can say, like in Gavin's example, of particular pages, particular activity, or, you know, really get down. And it just means that you can make the most of the sales alerts that we offer. You know, it does take a little bit of time to set it up, but once it's there, that automation is going to really benefit you and your sales team.
I think that's a good point about starting, unless you know you're getting lots and lots of visits and to those pages. Like, it's really better to start broad and then sort of narrow those down. We've had this with lots of clients, especially if they've just started with the sales alerts. That they'll start with the broadest sort of catch-all alert they can set up, and then based on how many they're getting through a week and a month and how the team's dealing with that, then they can then add in those extra conditions. We're like, well, actually, that we need to filter this down. But you're definitely better starting with broader ones and then working down.
Fantastic. So we didn't get any other questions in the chat. So what I did want to show you this, obviously we run through this very briefly to give you a feel of what's possible with sales alerts. But if you do already have, well, we call it sales alerts in your platform, you'll find it under workflows. So if you already have this feature activated, then we do have a kind of basic step-by-step tutorial that is on our website as an article. So if you don't remember everything, that should give you all the steps you need. If you don't have this already as part of your platform and you are interested, then get in touch with your account manager. So anyone in the CS team or even the onboarding team, if you are still in that process. And we can have a chat with you about that and show you it in more detail if you want us to. So, and really, I don't think there is any more questions, but if you do have any more questions before we wrap up, we've been very efficient today. So if you have any questions on Company ID or the workflows, or actually any other platform questions, we might as well make the use of us whilst you have us here. So we'll give you a couple minutes.
And you didn't do your question at the start, did you? Really? Remember, we were going to have a question instead of the weather. You didn't do. We didn't.
No, I know. What's the alternative weather chat? Because today
I couldn't think of one today.
I'm going to say, how brown is your toast need to be the perfect level of like toastedness? There is a very like universal thing.
So we'll do for next time. We'll come up with something.
Okay.
For our pre-webinar chat, rather than the weather, because that's talk about it all the time.
Sure. All right, everyone. It doesn't look like there's anything coming through, but if there's anything that comes into your mind after this, then reach out to us. Otherwise, we'll see you at the next one. So the next webinar we're going to be doing is on advanced bot building. So this is all the super clever stuff that you can do within the bot builder. to be more intelligent about the way that you do things, make more use of information on websites and things like that. How to build a calculator is one of the things we'll be covering. So do take a look at the webinar that's coming up next, and we'll hope to see you there.
All the best. Bye.